Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
You're watching Disruptive Investing. We're calling this What People Don't Realize Is Coming.
So we've been talking about so many aspects of EVs and electrification, and we've been doing this for so many years.
And then we've both talked about this. We often feel we're repeating ourselves, and we don't want to get stale and repetitive, like my 9th grade Latin teacher. Oh my God, that guy repeated himself almost every day. The good Latin. Anyway, I forget that many of our newer viewers have never heard our thesis on the impending big auto oil implosion explained, which was an in-depth that we published back in 2018.
Which I know sounds like it was 2 years ago, but it's actually 6 years. What? Anyway, almost 500,000 people watched it, so I kind of thought, well, everyone's seen that. We don't need to go back and talk about it anymore. But what we talked about back then centers on this chart by our friend Ross Tessian.
So blue is ICE car sales, which he predicted would start to plummet in 2023. Red is EV car sales, which he predicted would start to take off in 2023, which kind of looks right on target.
Green is a sum of both ICE and EV car sales, so that has a major slump in 2025 when EVs haven't quite caught up with demand, but no one wants an ICE car.
And what's purple again?
That purple line is oil in millions of barrels per day.
Oh, okay, right. So around 2025, the lack of oil demand, because less and less ICE cars are on the road, leads to a steady decline in oil consumption.
What's so interesting is that we published that video back in 2018. I mean, I guess it's only 5 years ago because it wasn't in February. And it appears that much of Ross's predictions are kind of right on target. I mean, last year in 2023, there were 10 million BEVs sold worldwide.
Now, Ross's chart looks like it was predicting around 14 million.
Well, if you count hybrids, there were 13.6 million BEV and PHEVs sold last year. So I'd say that he was almost right on. Now, do you think that we'll actually hit 20 million EVs sold this year in 2024? Because that's what Ross's chart from 2018 predicts.
It's possible. I mean, Tesla and BYD are the two biggest EV makers globally, and together they have a 35% market share. I'd bet that the total global EV sales will be closer to 15 million this year, especially since I only like to count BEVs.
But back in 2018, we were all being told that Big Auto is going to be coming out with the Tesla killer any day now. And well, they didn't. They all dragged their feet, and so it's largely been Tesla and BYD dragging the rest of the industry forward.
I think in this country, if GM, Ford, VW, Toyota, Honda, and all the other big players had seriously worked on developing their own EV platforms and put the resources into battery manufacturing back in 2018, consumers would be buying way more EVs now.
But they didn't. And so consumers really only have limited choices. So does this mean that Ross's chart is going to be wrong?
No, I think like any prediction years and years out, it's impossible to get it perfect. I think this changes some of the curves slightly, but the premise is still right on target. Even if the red EV sales curve there is a bit slower growth in getting to vertical takeoff, it's still going to happen, just with maybe a slightly less aggressive knee than we see in Ross's original chart.
Well, since 5 years have gone by, it'll be interesting to see how accurate the first 5 years of Ross's chart actually were.
That would be cool, wouldn't it? You know what? I actually plotted it with actual data.
Oh.
So here we go. First, here is Ross's predicted global EV sales versus actual EV sales that actually did happen from 2018 through 2023. Ross's predictions in blue, actual in red.
Wow. I mean, he nailed it.
Yeah. He was off maybe a little bit last year, 1.4 million, but not by much. And also, don't forget, COVID happened, and in 2018, none of us had any idea that was going to happen. All right, so here is Ross's global ICE car sales versus actual ICE car sales from 2018 through 2023. Again, blue is Ross's prediction, red is actual.
So wait, so ICE car sales actually dropped faster than Ross predicted?
Yes. Now, I do want to point out that up until 2022, I could get really accurate data on ICE car sales. And then last year, 2023, really hard. You go try it yourself. You ask all the search engines to give you that data. And because EVs have started to be mixed in with ICE cars, it's harder and harder to get those numbers. Companies don't want to report them separately anymore. You know, like Ford, they have two different divisions and they report them at different times.
Because then someone might start to make a graph like this.
So it was hard to do this, and, you know, so don't count my numbers perfectly. But yes, I do believe that Ross's numbers actually, even though the lines aren't perfectly lined up over each other, Ross was right. ICE car sales were going to drop, and they dropped faster than he predicted. This is technically Ross's third prediction. It's basically the total number of ICE and EV cars sold. And again, Ross's numbers in blue, actual in red.
And you can see that the pandemic had a big impact in 2020 in lowering total car sales worldwide.
Yeah, you might actually argue that if it hadn't been for the pandemic, that these two lines would be the same.
Right. And I mean, it's also hard to see on this chart just because we included 0 at the bottom. So, there is quite a bit of difference between the two.
This last chart is Ross's oil production globally in millions of barrels per day. So blue is his numbers and red is actual numbers. Again, you can see this dip in oil production during COVID, but wow, Ross's numbers were right on here too.
So what does this mean if Ross's chart has largely been right for the past 5 years?
Well, if you made it this far, it's probably because you understand that the EV revolution is real. You see that what we've been telling you is going to happen, has been happening. Why do you think we're calling this episode What People Don't Realize Is Coming?
Let's take a look at what happened to oil prices during COVID. Remember when oil prices went negative for a while?
Yeah, that was when people were hunkered down at home and transportation virtually stopped for a while.
Right. Oil oversupply led to price swings that we've never seen before.
Yeah, I mean, you can see in 2020, oil prices actually went negative for a while.
30% of the global oil supply is used to power automobiles. What do you think is going to happen when a bigger and bigger percentage of these automobiles don't burn oil?
As Ross pointed out, it only takes a small change in demand, say 1 million barrels per day, to start a huge supply problem. Because don't forget, this is not a perfect capitalistic market. This is a bunch of countries producing oil that don't act as a cartel anymore. It's not like Saudi Arabia, the US, Russia, Canada, Brazil, Iraq, China, Iran, Mexico, etc. are all going to call each other up and have a friendly conversation like, you know what? Demand is dropping, so let's produce less to keep the prices up, okay?
Yeah, for many of these countries, this is a major, if not only, source of income. So as these prices drop, they're actually going to feel pressure to pump more to keep the revenues up.
Yep. And as that oil glut, that oversupply hits the market, the price is going to then drop.
But hang on. Isn't that bad? I mean, if gas prices drop, won't more people want to buy ICE cars?
Yes, and as Ross predicts, you can go watch that episode, during this period where EVs can't keep up with demand and new ICE cars are dropping in demand, there will be this period where used ICE cars see a demand surge and ICE car mechanics are going to be super busy. But as oil prices then drop, many oil producers will shut down operations and then supply will then drop.
Oh, and then prices will go up. As gas hits $5 a gallon, $6 a gallon, etc., that will be the death knell for ICE cars, and the age of gas-powered cars will be gone for good, never to return.
That is what most people don't see, and it's much closer than we think. Now you see it. What are you going to do with that information? Might I recommend you join us on Patreon? Our Now You Know Investor Club is made up of hundreds of smart, disruptive investors like you that get it. We talk about this every week on our exclusive Investor Club bonus stories that only our members get to watch. We have a Slack with dozens of cool channels where you can discuss, learn, and share ideas with your fellow members. We have exclusive live streams with founders and CEOs, people you'd never get to contact with otherwise.
I hope you'll consider supporting the independent reporting that we do every week. It's Patreon support that makes this all possible, so that we don't have to cater to the Jim Cramer crowd.
And we hope you'll check out Tesla Time News every Tuesday on our Now You Know channel if you don't already. We've been doing it for 388 weeks in a row, so we kind of know what we're talking about.
We'll see you next week, Disruptive Investors.
Thanks for watching.